So I'm going to start off this tape with a quick executive overview of what the heck technical debt is, and in particular how it impacts your consideration about enabling OKRs in your organization. Then I'll take a second pass and go through at a slower pace and in more detail. The technical debt equation is pretty straightforward. If we were to plot your ability to monitor your OKRs against time, what happens is with homebrew solutions, so ad hoc tools like Excel, Google Sheets, Monday.com and so on, what happens is you get a very quick benefit at the beginning as we use that tool. It's small functionality around a limited scope of OKRs, but it plateaus out quickly because it's not scalable, there's no technical support, training doesn't exist, and so forth. When you buy a tool, like Quantive or some other bespoke tool, the issue is that there's a perception of less benefits at the beginning. Now, in this area, it looks like those ad hoc tools have an advantage. What you're doing here are things like setting up product hierarchies, organization charts, units of measure, all sorts of things that you'd need to set up anyways, but you kind of have to do it up front in order to get that solid foundation. So it looks like the ad hoc tool gives you benefit. The dilemma is out here. This is what's called technical debt, because what happens is at a certain point in time, you can't scale Excel's far enough, and these other tools begin to deliver better functionality to the organization. But it becomes hard to switch for the organization. People are used to the Excel, it's convenient, there's been no cost associated with it, and so on. So what ends up happening is over time, the gap between what your Excel can provide and what your organization needs gets bigger and bigger. Now, the sad part is we have almost 100% failure. If people are using these ad hoc tools, eventually it dies very quickly and OKRs fail. Not because OKRs are wrong for your organization, but because the technical debt gets to the point where the cost to maintain the system is greater than the benefit it gives you. So what we want to do is attack this technical debt, but the dilemma is bigger than that because in the OKR world, it's not technical debt, it's strategic debt. What ends up happening is you're not able to achieve your strategic goals, and that's a far bigger cost to the organization than a technical debt. And that's a scenario that we need to pay attention to when we're dealing with OKR enablement. Okay, that's a short version. Now I'm going to go through at a more sane pace and explain this model in more detail. Okay, so let's go through this at a more sane pace. If we're to plot the functionality of your OKR system over time, when we're using these existing tools, I'm going to call them ad hoc tools. So these are things that are in place, like Excel, Google Sheets, Salesforce, Monday.com, Jira, whatever those might be, Asana. They give you an immediate boost. They give you an immediate boost because people already know how to use it, because at this early stage, there's limited functionality for OKRs. And so you get lift fairly quickly. And so the advantages here are that, there's no approval needed. You don't need to go through a security audit. It's free because the company's already invested in it and so on. The disadvantages, though, is it's not scalable. This plateau is caused because it's difficult to scale beyond that simple functionality. And that's what you need beyond the first month. And also the total cost of ownership goes up. There's no documentation for your system. There's no ongoing support. There's no training. You don't get enhancements as your source tool improves or as new things enter the realm of OKRs. So it's a bit of a dead end technology. So you get that instant gratification, but then it sort of fails over time. Of course, the option is to buy a bespoke OKR tool. And so these are tools like Quantive, BetterWorks, Workboard, and so forth. And they have the perception that they give you less benefits at the beginning and then better traction at the end, right? So the advantages ultimately is they have this richer functionality, that they're scalable to the size of your organization, but there's also instant support available to you all the time. Even when you have staff turnovers, they can still support you. They've got the training mechanisms and support available. It's cloud-based, so you don't have infrastructure issues. And of course, they're continuously improved to keep track of modern OKR practices. The disadvantages, of course, is an additional cost to your organization. Some organizations consider it SaaS overload. You probably need internal approvals that you didn't need for the ad hoc system. And to some extent, a disadvantage is you have to do OKRs according to the vendor. And that's an important aspect because there's no generally accepted OKR principles or rules that you need to follow. So each vendor does it slightly differently. And so you're stuck into their track. Now, what this means is In this initial period, the allure of these ad hoc tools, of course, are these early, fast traction and benefits. But you pay for that in the fullness of time. And that's what's called technical debt. And how you pay for it is, the gap between this plateau and what you can get with an OKR tool gets bigger and bigger. And it makes it difficult for you to sustain the OKR system because it can no longer answer the more complex questions that users ask it. It doesn't have APIs to pull data from source systems, so the cost of maintaining it gets higher and higher. You don't have the transparency. You don't have the version control stuff. And so that's the typical technical debt that you have actually with any software. The issue with OKR software is the bigger cost is the strategic debt. Right? The strategic debt is the gap between what you're capable of executing or what you think the organization is doing and what you actually need to do in order to be successful. And that's far more dangerous to your business. What this causes is, frustrated employees. They're not engaged because they don't see the rewards and the progress in the work that they're doing. It makes it very hard for you to change your strategy. So if I want to change my objectives or key results, it's less easy in that ad hoc tool. And therefore, it hampers the agility of your organization and its ability to perform. Right? And so the executive summary of all of this is ad hoc tools give you quick validation up front, but you pay the price. The OKR tools look like they are a bit more difficult to set up at the beginning, but you're laying the foundations for that long-term success. And again, we see virtually 100% failure in any organization that tries using these ad hoc tools. Even tools like Asana, where they've tried to add in some degree of functionality around OKRs, they just don't have that richness of functionality that you need to make this successful. Now, what we've done at PM Squared to combat this problem is we've made it easier to implement these OKR tools. In fact, we can implement them faster than you can implement these ad hoc tools because we've done it literally 1,000 times. And we can compress that implementation stage to 5 days. We can get you here in 5 days, and therefore we combat the perceived benefits of those ad hoc tools at the same time laying that great foundation for success rates. And we've got a high success rate. 5 years out, over 90% of our clients are still using that OKR tool that we put in place. So there's a quick overview of strategic debt and the overlay with OKRs and what the ultimate solution looks like.